All right, I guess we are all here, so I guess I will start the meeting. If everyone can please rise and we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks for sharing your screen line. I appreciate it. So the first item on tonight's agenda is reorganization. So do I have any motions, or I'm blanking on the word, any requests for chair?
If Vince isn't opposed, I nominate to keep him one more year.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Do we have a second or any other nomination? Tony seconded?
Vernon.
Vernon, got it.
Hmm.
All in favor of Vince to be the chairman, say aye.
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 Any nays?
Thank you.
The ayes have it. Congratulations, Vince. Now you can take over the meeting.
Thank you, Dave. Do we have a nomination for vice chair?
Nominate Greg.
Do we have a
Continue.
second or any other? A second?
I'll second this.
Thank you. Do we have any other nominations? Okay. All those in favor of Greg signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We also have a position of secretary.
Sure.
And do we have any nominations for that? Mike, is that something you'd be interested in?
What's the job description?
In the event that I and Greg couldn't make it for any reason, you would run the meeting. And in the event that we would need somebody to take notes, in the rare instance, that's generally Dave. We would need assistance there.
Sure, that's not a problem.
Thank you. We have Mike. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Who seconded that? I'm sorry.
Greg.
Greg, got it.
All set, Dave?
Yeah, we're good. Sorry.
No worries. Wanted to check, do we need to make a motion so that we can each hear issues independently in case we need anything done by docket?
I think we only need that for the zoning hearing board.
That's fine.
I remember looking into that. Yes, only the zoning, we need that.
Okay. All right. Well, at this point, then I guess we're cleared to proceed.
Correct.
Excellent. If you would read in the first matter.
First matter is simply a land development application for 3 new fields at the Proving Grounds at 725 Conshohocken Road. Whoever wants to present, Paul, Rick, Chad, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I first want to, as a 21-year resident of Plymouth Township, I wanted to thank the Planning Commission for your service to the community. I want to introduce our engineers, Rick Stoneback and Chad Bressinger from Shoemaker Engineers, and they will be doing the presentation. They've also been the consistent engineers for the prior phases, for prior land development on this site for the Proving Grounds. Rick?
Sure. Can we share the screen with Chad? And I think he has some graphics to put up.
Yep.
Okay, I think we all know where we're at. This is the old Allenwood Steel parcel. And it's bounded by Brook Road, the Blue Route, and a roadway known as Tees Boulevard that is really a private driveway that was built by Paul and his partners, that it connects Brook Road to Conshohocken Road. The present proposal is to build the 3 fields that are on the northeast side, I guess, of the parcel that abuts the Plymouth Trail. There's 3 new fields identical to the ones that were the other 5 that abut it. And then, of course, there's the Villanova field, hockey field. There's parking provided for another 270 some spaces. Stormwater management is shown on this graphic. And there's also a second concession stand that will be built, as shown on the, as a white square at the end of the one parking lot. And the other 2 significant items, I believe, from a planning perspective are there is a sidewalk or a pedestrian connection between the upper fields that will go between existing fields 4 and 5, and then with a switchback to go down the hill, all ADA compliant, to get down to the concession building area. And then there's also shown a connection to the Plymouth Trail at the end of the parking lot that would provide an opportunity for parents, maybe between games, somebody wants to just go for a walk or a jog, they can utilize the Plymouth Trail. In addition to the paved parking spaces that are shown, there's also an overflow area, that stabilized turf that Paul indicates that they occasionally have buses that come and bring some teams. So they would utilize that area as an overflow area to park some buses. Everything's been built and tested before. It's more of the same. We have the concession building will have bathrooms, some small maintenance equipment will be stored in it, and of course, food and drink. Chad, if you can get to the utility plan that shows the grading and the like.
That one good?
This is it. This shows the 3 new fields, fields 6, 7, and 8. It shows 3 basins adjacent to the Plymouth Creek and the trail. There's a lot of storm sewer that picks up the drainage from the paved parking lots and conveys it to those basins. And then it ultimately discharges to the Plymouth Creek in compliance with all of the township, state, and even federal stormwater requirements. I think the plan's been pretty thoroughly reviewed. The design concept was previously tested on the earlier phases. I don't think there's been any real issues with those. The letters that we have there's a staff letter from Dave that indicates that staff had reviewed all the plan issues and they had no comments. McCluskey and Favor wrote a generally positive letter and recommended the 2 landscape waivers. And I don't believe there were any items left on the last review done by Woodrow Associates. The biggest hangup that we've spent at least 3 months or more dealing with water line and fire protection. There was a lot of talk about a main extension by Aqua that was going to be shared by the different owners. that would extend from Brook Road down to Conshohocken Road. I believe there's a existing user down there that everybody was anxious to get better fire protection in that area in case that building ever caught on fire. After a lot of back and forth, Aqua finally said no to the main extension. They didn't want anything to do with it. And they told us that we had to put a meter at Brook Road and we would run a fire line down to the to serve our project, and also a domestic line. We had a lot of discussions with staff, the fire marshal, and there were about 3 iterations of this design, and now it's being constructed with an 8-inch fire line that could in the future become a main extension if that's where it ultimately ends up. And we have we finally satisfied him, and the building is about 6,000 square feet, and we'll have sprinklers and fire protection and domestic water, of course. So that's basically it. Sanitary sewer runs through the site. We're relocating a small portion of it. And the lighting for the parking lots will be similar to what was done in the other phase. I think that's about the gist of everything that we're proposing. There are some waivers that are requested. They're waivers that were included in prior phases. If you don't have any questions, maybe I'll just jump to the waivers. Hearing none, I'll go to the waivers. They're listed on our land development plan. And I want to point out one error that we have on the first one. The first waiver is related to monumentation, which has to do with survey monuments. And there was partial waivers granted. There's monumentation that exists on this project. It's 100 some acres. This phase has, it's not really adjacent to any property lines. It's all the property corners are on the opposite side of the Plymouth Creek along Brook Road. So we were asking for a partial waiver to not put those monuments in at this time. And I believe that waiver was granted on prior phases. There are monuments that exist, but there's a few that are missing that because of topographic conditions and the like were not set. In that paragraph that was written both on the plan and in the waiver request letter that was dated October 8th, in the middle of this sentence that discusses monuments, there's a sentence that says a waiver of the requirement to prepare a traffic study for the development of this lot is requested. That's an error on Shoemaker's part. It wasn't intended to be included. A traffic study, and I'll defer to Paul for more details, but a traffic study was prepared in the earlier phases in anticipation of ultimate build out. Traffic impact fees were established, and the understanding is that there's to be a study done at the completion of the project to verify that all of the projections that were done earlier in the earlier study prove out to be the correct conditions. I don't know, Paul, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's correct. We did do traffic counts and paid traffic fees for fields 1 and 2, and then for the next phase also. And the agreement at that time was, you know, until the whole facility is built out and fully operational, we don't know how many cars are going to come from Brook Road or from Conshohocken Road or through the Tees Golf Center area. And we agreed to defer with the township and our traffic engineer a full study until the full build out.
I imagine that's addressed in a development agreement at some point, Paul.
That's correct.
The second waiver was to waive the installation of concrete curbs along Tees Boulevard. Tees Boulevard has been built essentially as a driveway that was owned by the Tornettas. When the Danella project went in, some additional improvements were made. The construction does not include curbs, and it's not intended to be curbed. When we did the other portion of the project that included, for example, fields 3, 4, 5, where the new driveway intersected with T's, this waiver was granted that T's would not be built with curb. And then it has parallel stormwater swales on grass, which provides water quality improvements that do not occur when a curbed road section is installed. The third item has to do with stormwater manholes, and the ordinance requires that a manhole be provided at changes in alignment, but never more than 300 feet apart. The length of our fields is 360 feet. And if you look on this plan, Ted, you can point it out, you'll see like a herringbone. Those are under drains that underdrain the field. And the pipe down the middle is longer than 300 feet. So we've been granted that waiver on prior phases. The fourth waiver that's listed is 518H, which is parking area landscaping. And that was really to address this reinforced grass area where there's no islands or any formal landscaping provided in that area. The last one is that there are some instances on the project, I don't think there's very many, where the parking islands do not contain the shade tree or the shade tree. And that's because of underground utilities that preclude it. And those trees were planted at other locations. And McCluskey and Faber, the landscape architect, in their letter of November 3rd, had no objection to the granting of those last two waivers that I mentioned. So that's what I have. Are there any other questions? I mean, if there are questions, we certainly can prepared to answer them. I know that the scheduling is tight for Paul's construction. He did get a grading permit. They started to move dirt, and now they have snow to deal with. So I guess that is all part of his construction schedule. My understanding is that the project is scheduled for preliminary final approval before council later this month. So it would be our hope that you would recommend its approval.
And our tradition is to go through the board to see if there are any questions and to obviously allow consultants and our zoning officer to comment on where we are. So if there's no other presentation at this point, we'll turn it over. Lonnie, do you have something?
Yeah, Rick, as a point of clarification, the waiver requested for the storm manhole is warranted because strict adherence to the code would make the design of the fields unfeasible. In other words, you'd have a manhole sticking up somewhere in the field. Is that basically correct?
Yeah, the manhole would have to be under the turf. And then if you ever needed to access it, you'd have to cut open the turf to get to it.
Okay, so with that clarification, I have no issue with the request for waiver. I think we did that in the previous fields 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I think there was a case where we'd had that same issue. As Mr. Stoneback had mentioned, we've done multiple reviews and revisions to this plan, and we're at the point now where it's presented in a position where we're able to say we have no engineering comments associated with what's with the way the plan is in its current shape. So we would recommend that the board pass on the plan from an engineering standpoint. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Vernon, do you have anything?
No, not right now.
Thank you, sir. Tom?
The only thing that comes to my mind is where Tees Boulevard or Tees Road joins to Brook Road. Habitually, over many, many years, this has been a very, very bad flooding area on heavy rains. And I'm just concerned that with the runoff from the paved parking lot area, which I think now where one of the fields is now, I believe they have, is there blacktop in there now where cars were used? They were storing automobiles in there at one point? Rick, is that?
I believe it had stone
It was a
in
stone
that
lot.
area.
Okay. I never got to see what it was. I just always used to see vehicles back there. That's the only concern I have is water runoff from the area because that area floods out very, very easily.
May I speak to that, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely, sir.
Mr. Parkin, as we understand it, the pinch point, it's like a pinch point of an hourglass is the bridge underneath Brook Road.
Okay.
And if you look at the 3 massive underground pipes under the IKEA development, which I believe are 18 feet wide by 13 feet high, and there's 3 elliptical pipes that go under there. And then on our side, that whole Plymouth Creek was widened close to 20 years ago to accommodate the 100-year floodplain. But the pinch point and where it floods is the township bridge at Brook Road. And if you look there, that pipe size is inadequate for both sides of the of Plymouth Creek.
Okay.
But it
Dave,
does.
is that something to be looked at and addressed?
It did flood out last year, 18 months ago during the big rain. But we still have other access points on Conshohocken Road and then further down where Tees Golf Center is.
Mm-hmm.
If I could add, our site is below that. The water runoff from our parking lot enters the creek below it. So it doesn't contribute to that flooding. But
Right.
Paul's correct. There clearly is a mapped floodplain by FEMA that's included in the township's flood insurance rate map that does show the flooding of Brook Road at that location.
Okay. All right. Well, from what you're telling me, I mean, from what I can see, your project is not going to impact on that, has no impact on that flooding. That's a pre-existing condition. And that would probably need to be addressed at some point in time by, township officials in some other way, but I don't see any problem with what you're proposing.
Thank you.
Anything else, Tom?
No, I believe that's it.
All right. Thank you, sir. Lonnie, do you have anything in regards to that? Okay. Dave, is that just something we need to make a note of for? something to
Yeah,
be looked
I
at?
know Chris in Public Works, that's one of the, he always has issues down there on Brook Road with flooding and even icing in the winter months. I mean, I can always talk to Chris and see where we're at with that, what we're doing. I'm not really up to date on what the township is doing in that area, but I'll get in touch with Chris and we'll see where we're at.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Monica, do you have anything?
No, I don't have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Tony, do you have anything?
No, I'm good there. Thank you.
All right. Mike?
Just one question about the parking. Is the additional parking going to be accessed, I guess, from the upper parking lots off of Tees? Is that what the plan is? There's no additional
Yes.
access, I guess my point is.
There's no additional access to Tees. It gets accessed. If you can see the intersection between the parking and the driveway that goes out to Tees at the,
Yep.
I guess that's the east end of the lot. It's just basically a 4-way intersection there to go into the
Mhm.
into the stabilized area, which is shown shaded on the plan.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Greg, do you have anything?
Just a little clarification on the justification for no sidewalks. Or for the curbing, rather.
Well, I think that the decision was made that Tees Boulevard wouldn't have curb when the Danella project was approved and when the earlier phases of the proving grounds was done. I know the township was very concerned about people cutting through Tees Boulevard. For a while, it was gated. Paul, you can probably help me with this, but the result of that was that Tees Boulevard was widened and improved privately. And at that time, apparently because it was being done privately, that the township saw fit not to encumber it with additional curb. When we deal with stormwater management in this time of NPDS permitting, water quality is a very important component to stormwater management. When we do our calculations to get NPDS permits, we have to show that we're dealing with nitrates and we're dealing with phosphates and some of the other pollutants that enter the stormwater system. And one of the ways that water is cleansed is by running it over vegetated areas in lieu of keeping it on hard paved areas. So by running the water across the side of the roadway in the vegetated grass area, that provides water quality enhancement. And you're starting to see more and more roadways built with that type of roadway cross section without the curb.
Okay, thank you.
And Dave, just to be clear, the township has no objection to that at this point.
No, they do not. No.
Okay. The issue of lighting, has that been addressed?
The lighting was is similar to what was built in the earlier phases.
Mhm.
And the landscaping, the lighting, I think the township lighting consultant reviewed the parking lot lighting design. I think in the past, they did not review the Musco lighting for the fields, but to the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware of any complaints that have been received. I don't know, Paul, have you?
No, there's been no lighting complaints. They're all Musco quality fixtures. It contains the light onto the field surface. They've got anti-glare. In fact, these fields will be all LED, which even has a lower glare coefficient than the metal halides. And the nearest neighbor, I'm just probably 3/4 of a mile away. I mean, it's just, it would be on the other side of Tees Golf Center. Fulton Street is the closest neighbor. We've had no police complaints. We had one false fire alarm since 2013. It's a clean operation. It doesn't bother anybody, and there's been no complaints about it.
Very good, thank you. Dave, is there any comment from the township or anything outstanding with any of the letters from consultants?
The only one, I have no further comments. They're done listening to me and what the township staff has to say for the past 6 months. But going through the file and the review letters, the most recent lighting consultant letter we had was basically from last April, after the first review. It said the lighting was unacceptable at that time, whatever. So we do need that clean review letter before the plan is recorded. So if that can be worked out with Ron Smith at Suburban Lighting within the next week or two. That would be great. Just shoot over a revised plan to me and Ron and have him review it, and we'll go from there.
Yes, we will comply with that.
Perfect.
Thank you. Is there any comments from the audience? Is there anyone in the audience opposed to the application? Is there anyone in the audience in favor of the application? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Vince. I'll make a motion, Vince, to approve the 5 waiver requests.
Okay, with the lighting outstanding to be resolved.
Yes, exactly. With
to
the caveat
satisfaction of
that
the consultant.
Dave just mentioned. Yep. Mhm.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Dave, or Vince.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you very much. Wish you a lot of luck.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you for your time this evening.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. So the last thing on the agenda tonight is the Act 537 East Norton Special Study. Basically, East Norton Township is, and Monica, weren't you recusing yourself from this vote?
Yes, I am.
Okay, perfect. And East Norton Township is selling their sewer system to Aqua. They need their neighboring municipalities to basically sign off on that. And with one of those requirements, it is planning commission or planning agency approval from the neighboring communities. So that's what that whole correspondence was about. That's all personally that I know about it. The technical stuff you can bother Lonnie with, but that's basically the gist of the whole thing.
It's Dave, it's really an administrative function that we're doing tonight. There's really nothing technical
Right.
about it. East Norton is selling their conveyance system. Therefore, that kicks in a revision to the Act 537 plan, and that's what you're approving tonight. Really
And-
has no impact, really has zero impact upon the township.
With that said, Vince, we're gonna need a signature from you, and whether you can email it in to me or we have a Dropbox in our vestibule in our township building, if you just want to drop it off there in the next few days.
Yeah.
I believe that it was in that email I sent to you guys. I think there was a sample letter in there. I'll find out if we can sign that letter or if there's another letter we're using. And once I know, I'll let you know for sure, Vince.
Okay. Well, I have to say, I'm very grateful that our township is not doing that. From what I've read and from what I've heard, it is absolutely frightening. I'm seriously concerned about some of our brothers and sisters over in Conshohocken, and especially with that parcel of the township that I believe is taking water from Conshohocken municipality. And Lonnie, you can correct me if I'm wrong there.
I think you're correct.
Yeah. So that means a portion of our Plymouth Township residents in that area are going to be negatively impacted by those
Yeah.
rates in the coming
We have a-
year or two.
Correct. Yeah, we have a small section in the township that goes to Conshohocken, so yes.
Right. Yeah. Given the hill, there's not much you can do.
I now work in Springfield Township, and they sold their sewer system. They got a new township building out of it, but what their sewer rates are going to be like in a couple, 5 years, no one really knows.
Yeah. So I'm grateful that our township backed off of that. There are some concerns there, especially when you're looking at things longitudinally. It is a concern.
Mhm.
So I believe we need a vote on this, Dave.
Correct. So if anyone wants to
Hey,
make a motion-
Dave,
Yeah,
just have a question for you. What's the genesis of this Act 537? I mean, why alert municipalities that aren't impacted? What's the,
I think that's a DEP thing, a requirement. I mean, Lonnie, correct me if I'm wrong, that
Yeah, the 537 is a study of the sanitary sewer within municipalities or joint ventures for municipalities. So it's a study, it's a way to go about managing your sanitary sewer. You have a plan, it's adopted. The current plan that Plymouth Township has now has to change because East Norton is out of the picture. So they have
See.
to, so we have to change.
So because we're impacted based on where we're, I guess, located, relevant to the, okay.
Right.
Okay, thanks. Just
Certainly.
curious.
Lonnie,
Absolutely.
this has no long-term impact to Plymouth. I mean, part of it's joint, right?
There's no long-term impact to Plymouth, except for the few people who their sewer goes to the Conshohocken plant. The rest of the townships, or the rest of the township's fine. Has no impact.
Yeah, luckily, we don't have members of the township who are getting water from East Norton because they would be negatively impacted when rates go up.
True.
Okay, so do we have a motion? Unless there's any other questions or any concerns, please ask if you have anything you're uncertain of. Okay, do we have a motion?
Yes, motion to approve it.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
All those signify by saying aye.
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 And noted that Monica recused herself for this.
Got
Thank
it.
you very much.
Sounds good. All right, thanks, everyone. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have a meeting next month, so mark your calendars, first Wednesday. Sorry, Lonnie. First Wednesday in March. I'm not sure about any land developments or subdivisions, but there might be one or two zoning applications coming in, non-residential ones, so get your zoning cap on, as they say.
Are we still going to be virtual, Dave?
I believe so. I think we're virtual through April, the last I
Okay.
heard.
Okay,
I could be wrong, but think that's what I heard, so.
sure.
But
Yeah, council gave a 2-month extension on the virtual, all township meetings, virtual through April.
right,
Okay.
yep.
Good. Well, it's great to see everybody. Hope everybody had a happy new year. Obviously, we all survived shoveling, which is wonderful. Because I know my son and I probably did a few thousand pounds, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Might be time to get a snowblower. Len, thank you for running a tight ship. We appreciate it.
Welcome. Have a good night.
You
Thanks,
too.
Len.
Take care, everybody.
Got minutes?
Have a good night, everyone.
Oh, sorry, minutes. I
Oh,
forgot.
minutes, yeah.
Yes. Does
How were
anyone have
they?
any issue with minutes?
I had no problem.
It was from December, right?
Yes.
December, yeah.
Yes.
Do you need a motion to approve?
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
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 All right.
Perfect.
I think we're good.
Careful out there.